You're watching The Sports Objective, the podcast for Pirates. You're listening to Absolute Empowerment with Coach Jeff Connors on The Sports Objective. Join Coach C, a USA Strength and Conditioning Hall of Famer, every Monday night as he and a variety of guests, including former players, former and current coaches, pastors, and others will discuss relevant issues in coaching today's athlete, with the goal of equipping the athlete and those coaching them with the physical, mental, and spiritual armor necessary to live their best life. Here's Coach Connors.
Welcome to Absolute Empowerment. Tonight we have a very special guest, someone who I am very familiar with for a few different reasons. But we've got Terrance Copper with us, former receiver at East Carolina University and former receiver in the NFL with the Cowboys, the Saints, the Ravens, and the Chiefs. I think, Terrance, for a total of about, 8 seasons? Is that correct?
9.
9 seasons. Okay, yep. I stand corrected. So great to have you on the show. And the other thing that I wanted to say, in the introduction here is I think that you are recognized as a great husband, a great father, someone who really cares about developing the community. So definitely just wanted to mention that. We're going to get into that in more detail, but those things are very important as well in relationship to everything else you've accomplished as an athlete.
Thank you, Coach. And one thing I want to do, I want to just thank you for having me on. You are, I think I tell you this all the time we talk, you are a big reason of why I was able to accomplish a lot of things I was able to accomplish because of the mental toughness that you instilled in me. So I'm thankful that it can be a full circle and I can come back onto your show and talk about some things, but you definitely played a huge part in my development in life and on the football field.
Well, I really appreciate that. That gives me great satisfaction to hear those things. And, I just want to get into some things that you probably don't normally talk about in these podcasts. And, of course, I've mentioned it to you that this is a Christian podcast, and I know that you have a strong spiritual commitment and have had that probably through your entire life. But that's what I want to kind of get back into is, the factors starting out in your childhood and possibly even your church, your family that started to build that man who would later experience greatness. And so, tell us a little bit about growing up in Washington, right?
Right. Yep. Little Washington.
Okay.
Yep. So I grew up. I grew up in Little Washington. I was raised by my mother and my grandmother, but my mom worked a lot. So right. I wasn't at the house all the time because she was at work, but I was with my grandmother most of the time. But one thing about it is, it was in my grandmother's house. It was a small room I stayed in, and it was me, my brother, and my 2 cousins. And all 4 of us had different sets of friends. So even though we stayed in the same room, at any given time, you could have about 10 guys in that one room on the weekend because my brother may have a friend or so to stay over. I may have a friend or so to stay over. And so it was just like, it was a big old family in that room. But one thing that was pushed towards us when we was young is, I don't care who spend the night. That's what my grandmother said. I don't care who spend the night with you, but tell them if they stay the night Saturday night, they better bring their church clothes because they got to go to church on Sunday. That was the rule. It wasn't getting around that rule. We went to church every Sunday. And so that kind of started my relationship with God. That started my relationship with God. And then as I got older, God has really been a huge part of my life of me getting over obstacles, because I grew up in the church, but there's so many obstacles that I've come up against that if it wasn't for my faith, if it wasn't for Jesus being installed in me at a young age, I don't know if I would have got over it. So I can give you some examples. When I grew up,
please do.
Prime example. Let's talk about college, because a lot of people don't know this about it unless you was back in that time. So I got into some trouble when I was in college. My junior year, the summer of my junior year, I ended up coming back to my hometown. Little Washington, and I ended up getting into an altercation, getting into a fight. And when this happened, I end up, for one, we didn't go to court until a month before the draft. And at this point in time, I'm all in the paper, coach. I'm all in the front page of the paper because I got into an altercation. I'm in the front page of the paper back in my hometown. Terrance Copper sentenced, or Terrance Copper with a felony, hanging over my head. And this the point in time in my life where it was me and Larry Fitzgerald going back and forth on the football field. I'm at East Carolina, Larry Fitzgerald at Pittsburgh.
Right.
We're fighting back and forth to the most catches in the nation. At one game, I'm leading the nation in catches. The next game, he's leading the nation in reception because of how many catches we're getting. But here I am, my junior year, the summer of my junior year. We don't go to court until my senior year. We don't go to court until my senior year, a month before the draft. That's when we actually go to court. And I end up getting convicted of a misdemeanor assault charge. And that was me getting into a fight, and the crazy thing about it is I would take back, coach, and it's crazy for me to say this, I would take back the fact that I got to an altercation because I hurt the kid, but I wouldn't take back the lessons that I learned from it. I learned a lot of lessons, man, when it comes to adversity, a lot of lessons when it comes to my faith and how much faith I really have, because that I suppose got drafted between the 3rd and the 5th round. But because of that altercation I got in, all the scouts, they kind of backed away from me when it comes to me getting drafted, because they were like, okay, this kid must have character issues, and not really knowing what kind of actually led up to the fight, and again, it was all on me. I can't blame anybody for anything. It was all on me. Like at this point in time with my grandmother, she had passed. I told you I was raised with my grandmother. Right. And once she died, I started to act out. And when I say act out, I'm talking about partying, alcohol, women, doing everything up I was big enough to do, because I was just hurt and I was acting out. Definitely things outside of my character, but that's what I did. And I mean, I don't regret any of it. I understand the lessons that came behind it. But if it wasn't for my faith, I don't know if I would have made it. Because for one, I didn't get drafted. And then when I didn't get drafted, the Dallas Cowboys, they picked me up. And here I am I'm on the roster when you have 10 receivers on this roster. And I'm in training camp as a free agent. And I'm number 10 on the depth chart. And we're only keeping 5 receivers. 4 of the receivers played last year for the Cowboys. So basically, you got about 6 guys fighting for one spot. And I remember just as good, coach, when we got to training camp. The interview, not the interview lady, but the news lady that was covering the Cowboys, she came to me and she was like, Mr. Copper. So she put the mic in my face, Mr. Copper. So if you don't make the team, what's plan B? And I told her, I said, ma'am, I don't have a plan B. See, she didn't know my story, because my plan B was, if I don't make the team, because I got sued for $15,000, coach. I'm a college kid. I don't have any money. My parents didn't grow up with a silver spoon in their mouth. So we don't have $15,000 to find, to pay this.
NIL.
Exactly. So here I am. I owe $15,000. And it's either pay the $15,000 or go to jail for 45 days, because I got put on probation for 2 years. I'm on probation for 2 years. And so I started praying. I was telling the lady, ma'am, I don't have a plan B. This is my plan A, B, C, and D. Because like I said, she didn't know my story. She didn't know if I didn't make this team, I was going to jail for 45 days. But I knew where my faith came from. I grew up in church. So I started doing everything I knew I was supposed to do when it comes to my relationship with God. I started reading my word. I started really just relying on God and just focusing on God. And what God does is he allowed me to make this team and to pay that $15,000, right? But now it starts something else different when it comes to my relationship with God. Because now that's the first time that I actually had a chance to see God work in my life. And I knew God always worked in my life, but me actually asking for something and praying for something, and I actually see it, or I ain't gonna say I actually see it, I actually finally notice something that God does in my life, and not just going by the way thinking it's supposed to happen, but I actually noticed that God really came to bat for me. So because now I know the power of God, and I know God is gonna be there with me. So now what I started doing was I started, in the Bible, it said you need to praise God in and out of season. So I started doing exactly that. During training camps, when I'm trying to make the team, Lord God, please allow me to make this team. I would do your will. I would do everything big enough that I should be doing. And once I make the team and I make my money, because a lot of people may not know. So in the NFL, when I was playing, you had 17 weeks, 16 games. It's 17 games now. So in the span of 17 weeks, if I got $1 million contract, I'm gonna make $1 million in 17 weeks. But after the 17 weeks is up, the season is over. And so you don't get paid again until next year. So during training camp, when I'm trying to make this team, I'm praying to God, and God allowed me to make it. But as soon as I make all the money I wanted to make, the season was over with, I go back to doing everything I was big enough to do, coach. Partying, women, enjoying, doing whatever I wanted to do. Soon as the season rolled back around again, I got to make the team again. Guess what I'm doing? I'm back praying to God. God, please allow me to make this team.
Yeah.
I was wishy-washy
Right.
with my relationship with God. And I tell people all the time, I was confusing routine with commitment. Routine is me just praying every day, uh, asking God to forgive me and different things like that. Reading my Bible maybe 3 times a day, 2-3 times a day. To me, that's routine. And that's what I was doing. I wasn't committing myself. I wasn't doing what the Bible was telling me to do, what God is telling me to do, how to focus my life, how to stay on track. I wasn't doing those things. And so I feel like that was a big reason why. And when you look at my career, I played in the league 9 years. But to me, I wanted to stay with one team the entire time. I didn't want to bounce from team to team. And it wasn't until I got to Kansas City where I was spiritually, what can I say? I was spiritually challenged to where we had Bible study. We had couples Bible study. We had team Bible study. So I was always in the mix of God when I was with Kansas City. So it kept me focused. It kept me locked in. It kept me continuing to build my relationship with God. And not just building my relationship with God, helping other guys on the team, because now my role has changed. I'm a veteran on the team now. You know, I'm not a young guy coming in. Now my role has changed. So now I'm trying to lead other guys to God and showing them how to go about it, not constantly throwing it in their face about God, but just how I go about my life.
Yeah.
And that was one of the biggest experience I had with God. Not my only, but one of the biggest experience I had with God, because that was a tough time for me, losing my grandmother, also being in the news, not being drafted because of decisions I made. But that was a tough time in my life trying to get over that.
Yeah, just kind of going back to the young Terrance Copper again. Who were some people in your life that maybe were mentors outside of your family? Were there any coaches or pastors or someone you remember there?
My head coach in high school, Coach Pascal. Coach Pascal, I want to say he's at River. Well, he was at Riverside last. I don't think he's there anymore. But Brian Pascal, he was there the entire time, helping to mentor me. Even when it came to come to me getting eligible to get into college, you know, he was telling me the right classes to take, you know, help me with my homework, get me in contact with people that could help me with homework. Because at the end of the day, like I said, I didn't have a father figure at the house. My mother worked all the time. My grandmother was older. She couldn't help me with my homework. And that's one thing for the younger kids that are watching this. If you have parents at the house that's helping you with your homework, you got to be thankful for it, because everybody don't come home to a family that can help them with homework. And that's how it was for me. You know, when I did my homework, if it was right or if it was wrong, I wasn't going to know until I got to school and my teacher checked it for a grade, you know, because I just didn't have that support system to help me with homework at the house. So whatever grade I got, that's what I got. But Coach Pascal, was a guy that was really there for me my entire time in high school, even when I got out of college, even when it came to help me find the right college to go to. Coach Pascal did a real good job with that. But when it comes to mentoring, I didn't have a lot of father figures in my life. When it came to mentoring outside of it,
Right.
Coach Pascal did a great job with it as far as he could take me. But I just didn't have a lot of father. I didn't have a lot of male figures that I could really kind of go to and sit down and talk about the things I was going through in life. I just really didn't have that type of male figures. I had some older men in my life, my Uncle D, but he was in his 70s, so I just really didn't have anybody that I could relate to that was a male figure growing up like that.
Well, in my, I guess 32 years of collegiate coaching, I'm going to say that I coached 60, 70% maybe young men that did not have a father figure in the home, of all races, creeds, and color. And basically, how important do I think that is? I think it's extremely important. But I will tell you this: I have met and coached players and some great people who had very strong grandmas. And I don't know what it is about a grandma. I had a couple myself, I can tell you, that were strong and cared a lot about me. And it was tough to lose them. But you look at Rod Coleman, for instance, and I did a podcast with Rod. And if you go back and listen to that podcast and tell his story, grandmas are extremely important. And I know some grandmas that are pretty tough too, that I met over the years on recruiting trips and so forth. And, had to report back to from time to time. So yeah, it's very interesting you say that, but at the same time, it's so good to see, even after she passed, what she instilled in you later on caused you to get back on the right track.
Right.
And that's something you can always be thankful for in relationship to what she instilled in you, because those things we don't forget. And now look what you're doing for your own family, probably because of her.
That's the truth.
Yeah.
That is
and that's the stuff. Yes, sir.
One thing she installed in me was, of course, how to treat people the way they want to be treated. But also she installed Jesus. Because Coach, at the end of the day, man, I could be stripped down to nothing, to be honest with you. And I'm not just saying this, come on your podcast. I just told somebody this 2 days ago. I could be stripped down to nothing. God can allow something to happen to me and I don't have any more money. I don't have anything. That could happen. Life happens. But one thing about it is I'm going to be okay regardless, because I got Jesus. As long as Jesus is my foundation, I can always get back anything that is taken away from me, that God allows to be taken away from me. Right. You can always get anything back. But as long as you have that foundation of Jesus, everything else can be given back to you. And that is one thing my grandmother installed in me: Jesus, the love of Jesus, the love of God. And as long as you have him, nothing else matters. I'm thankful God has continued to be blessing me and being able to bless others because of what he's done for me. But like I said, my foundation is Jesus, and that's why I stand on.
Yes, sir. It's about believing. I go back to that 1991 chant in Dowdy Ficklin, "We Believe." And same thing applies. Same thing applies in our spiritual life. So, we went ahead and started talking a little bit about the NFL. And I got this thing that I started once a month for former Pirates called Locker Room for Life. We got a presentation next week on nutrition. I got a guy coming on, so I'm trying to get more and more folks to tune into that. I got this idea from the general manager from the Steelers, who basically started a program called Lend a Hand. I had him on a podcast where basically what he talks about is some of these guys get out of pro ball, and when the lights go out, they get lost. And so he's got about 30 or 40 former Steelers on his monthly deal. But I guess what I want to ask you is, in your opinion, you people that you've met in the NFL, what are some of the things that causes people with talent to go by the wayside?
When it comes to actual on the field gameplay?
Well, whatever you want to mention.
So if we talk about actually on the field, because I've seen a lot of guys that I played with, played against, or once I got there, they got released from a team and I stayed. And when you get to the NFL, you see some freak of nature talent when you're out there. You know, it's some talented people out here when it comes to playing the game of football. And a lot of times, the reason why a lot of talent go to the wayside is, for one, whether they may be uncoachable and they're not willing to put in the work outside of practice to continue to develop. Because talent, if you're just trying to go off talent is not enough once you get to the league. It's not enough. Everybody's talented. You know, you got to have a work ethic. You got to pay attention to detail. You got to pay attention to fundamentals. So if you have a kid, I don't care how talented he is, if he doesn't pay attention to those details and the fundamentals of the game and have a great work ethic, he's not gonna last long, and he's definitely not gonna top out to where he should top out at, because he's just not putting the work in. But when it comes to, let's talk about outside of the football. Let's talk about once we're done with football and we retire. One thing I can tell everybody, anytime you're trying to make that transition from playing a sport that you've been playing all your life, it's a sport that you love doing, and for those lights to go out one day, and all of a sudden now you don't have that sport anymore, it's tough to find your way, because you've been doing something all your life, a game that you've been playing all your life, and it's just something that you love. It's hard to go and find another job that you love the same way you love playing whatever sport you just came out of. Let's say football. We talking about football. It's hard to go to a job and do something that you don't love doing. So sometimes that get a lot of guys caught in limbo because they don't know what to do next. And on top of that, not only do you not know what to do next, it's like now you're trying to think of a job. What can I do that will still give me that same fulfillment that I had when I was playing?
Right.
And that's something else that's hard to go by. Luckily for me, I got into training. So that was kind of a great transition for me to life coming from the NFL. Because I'm like everybody else. It's transition from the league. It wasn't hard. It wasn't easy. Me transitioning to training and different things like that, and guest speaking and different things like that, that made my transition easier, but it didn't make it easy. And even now, Coach, I'm still making that transition from the league. And I've been retired since 2013. It's been 10 years. And I'm still transitioning. I'm still working on transitioning. Just trying to stay focused on what I want to stay focused on and not get caught up in, I miss playing. I wish I could go play again.
Yeah.
So it's a lifelong journey. It's not just something that you just get over with after a few years you finish playing. And then you get to the point to where, after you do transition, now you get to the mental side of things, to where you've been playing or you've been doing this sport at the highest level forever. And everybody think you have so much money, and you can have money and you can have money saved up. But guess what? When you have a lot of money coming in as fast as it came in when you played, you live a certain lifestyle. Yep. And if you're living that certain lifestyle because it's conducive to the money that you're making, once that money stopped coming in the way it was coming in, you got to change your lifestyle. Now you can't continue to spend money the way you were spending. You can't continue to do certain things you was doing because you have 6 figures, 7 figures coming in yearly. You don't have that no more when you retire. You don't have that amount of money coming in like that fast. So if you don't change your living habits, you can easily find yourself going broke because you're living a habit to where you don't have the income to support your habit.
Right.
So you have to be disciplined enough to change how you go about things. Now instead of, usually when, let's take my family, for instance, it's 5 of us. Now, instead of us getting on a plane and we might fly to Atlanta, instead of getting that plane and flying, we may drive 8 hours. Just little subtle things like that
Right.
that you got to make adjustments to. I mean, of course, if we go in farther places, okay, we'll get on the plane. But if we can drive it, we'll drive it. It's all about making those adjustments. And it's all about not caring about what the people outside of your household thinks. Even when it comes to you getting a different job, because the mental part kick in now. Okay, is this job, am I going to get this job? How are people going to view me when I get this different job? Are they going to view me as, dang, why he working here or working there? And he played so long in the league.
Yeah.
The mental stuff come in now that you have to be able to deal with and not worry about what people thinking about. You just got to live your life, and not worry about what people are going to say, because you can have all the money in the world, but if you constantly have bills going out and you don't have money coming in, you just living off of savings, guess what? You're going to be broke soon. I mean, that's a simple matter. So a lot of those things come into play, man, when you're transitioning from whatever sport you've been in for that many years and that long.
Absolutely. I'm still transitioning out of coaching, but I'm 67.
It's a lifelong.
My wife keeps taking me on vacations and reminding me, hey, dummy, you're retired, let's go somewhere else. So,
Right.
So we're having fun.
That's good.
Yeah, we just got back from Florida a few days ago, so it's all good. I think it's just really important for young athletes, particularly collegiate athletes, to hear, you think when you go to the league and you hear these numbers, and if you make $1 million, immediately it's 500,000 anyway, because of the sales coming in. And then when you get out of it, and of course you go out and, you might buy you 2 or 3 vehicles or whatever. And, which is the worst investment a lot of times.
Mm-hmm.
And then, then when you get out, of course, you might not even be 30 years old. You got to realize you got a long way to go. That's a whole lot of years to support your family yet.
Mm-hmm.
So, it's really great for young athletes to hear that, because it's so true. And so I also wanted to get back into your ECU career now. And, of course, I had a chance to coach you for a little bit of time before I left. I left in 2001. But I certainly enjoyed coaching you. And then when you showed up at Carolina for that game, when I was across on the other side, and David Garrard hit you with the flag, I think the first play of the game, I said, oh man, this might not end well up here, because they also got the L train at tailback. Mm-hmm. And the L train got hurt in that game. But that was a very, very tough experience for me, and it's always tough every time I was at, Carolina plays East Carolina. I'm on one sideline, and half the time I always tell people, well, I did have a winning record, and when I came back to ECU, we beat Carolina 3 out of 5 times, I think. Mm-hmm. So I got some enjoyment out of those, but it was always very tough, because you love those guys on both sides of the sideline there. And I don't know how many people have experienced things like that, but it's pretty tough. But I want to talk a little bit about your experience when Coach Logan was there. Of course, can you tell me who had recruited you out of Washington? Was it one of the assistants, or was it Coach Logan came to see you, or how'd that work?
So Coach McManus, he came, he recruited me. He was the running back coach for East Carolina when I was there. But he recruited me. And once I got there, once I went on my visit, Coach Logan, this is what he did. Coach Logan was a great recruiter. He know how to use his words. He know how to phrase words. He know how to say certain things to get to you without actually coming out and saying certain things. So what he did was, because he knew if I went on, because I was recruited by Penn State, I had offers by Penn State, I had offers from South Carolina, I had offers from Wake Forest, Kentucky, Notre Dame. So I had some offers from a lot of big time schools. And when I went to East Carolina, Coach Logan pulled me in his office. He was like, listen, we want you to come here. He said, when you leave here, you'll be the #1 receiver to ever play here. He said, I could keep my number because, of course, I'm coming from high school. Everybody want their high school number. He said, you can keep your number 7. And he said, we won't redshirt you. One thing that stood out to me, the fact he said he wouldn't redshirt me was big to me, because you have to think about it. I'm a kid that played varsity all 4 years in high school. I started all 4 years. So I'm not trying to sit out at all because I'm not used to it. I've been playing ball forever. So I wasn't trying to sit out. And so that was another thing that caught me. And then one thing he said, well, Copper, he said, I got one stipulation though. I said, if you go on any other visits, I'm gonna take your scholarship. I'm gonna pull my scholarship back if I go on any other visits.
Oh yeah, that was his deal.
He already knew. He knew if I went to another school to see what they had to offer, that more than likely at that point in time, I may not chose East Carolina because of the other schools that was pulling at me. And so, and he got me with it. I didn't go on any other visits. I stuck with East Carolina. Another reason I stuck with East Carolina, because my girlfriend was pregnant at the time. My oldest son, she's my wife now, but she was pregnant in high school. And that was another reason for me wanting to stay at East Carolina. But man, Coach Logan taught me so much when it comes to X and O's. He taught me so much. And then when it comes to you, I got to bring you up. When it comes to you, even though you was there with me 1 year, I got to bring you up, because me coming to college and to have the type of coaching that you was giving me, how hard you was when it came to the conditioning, when it came to just mental toughness, that's all I knew coming to college. So I'm thinking this is what every college does. This is how every strength coach is. So no matter how hard it is, I was willing to do it because that's all I knew. All I knew was the way Coach Jeff Connors, the way he coached, how hard it is. That's all I know. If I want to play college ball, this is how college is. I didn't know another program. And when I came in, conditioning was hard for me. I could run, but it was hard for me to run. So I remember one day, this was on a Tuesday, and we had those 4 full gashers after practice. And here go another week, I didn't make it. And then you told Coach Logan, you and Coach Logan had a conversation right on the field. And he was like, you said something to the point of, listen, you ain't playing on Saturday if you can't make my conditioning. And then Coach Logan said, well, Coach, get him in shape because he got to play on Saturday. And sure enough, look, you put me on that Stairmaster. I never heard of a Stairmaster before, a step machine. After practice, after we ran those 4 gashers, and I missed one of them, like usual, you put me on this step machine in the weight room. I think we had to lift weights afterwards. I think it was like a 45 minute to an hour lift after practice. But you didn't have me lifting. You put me on that step machine for 45 minutes on level 12. And I've never been on the step machine before. And when I tell you what that did for me mentally, it pushed me to another level. Of course, it was taxing on my body. But the reason why I wasn't making my conditionings, and the reason why I was falling by the wayside conditioning purpose-wise, is because of the mental part. It wasn't because my body couldn't do it. It was just because mentally I couldn't get over that hurdle. Right. And one thing that I realized is that your body can do a lot more than what you think it can do. It's all about how far your mind and your brain and your mental can push it to go. And so my mental was collapsing before my body was collapsing. And so that's why it was tough for me to do the conditioning. But when you put me on that stair machine for 45 minutes and I didn't fall off, and I was up there about to cry, guys telling me to fall off and different things like that. And I was just sticking with it. Mentally, it was pushing me to a whole nother level. And ever since then, I made all my conditioning when it comes to those Tuesday practices. Now, them 800s might have been a little different that we had to run for conditioning, our test time. But
you talking about 300s, right?
The 300s, yeah. The 8 300s. That's what we had to run, the 8 300s.
Okay.
The test time. Now, I may have to do that twice, but I made the 4 full gash that we had to start making every Tuesday. But that was because of how you push me. And that work ethic and that mental toughness propelled me into the league with the same type of work ethic.
Well, I appreciate that. And I do remember that to an extent, but I probably had 3 or 4 other guys I put on there that day too, maybe. Who knows?
Right.
But I watched Netflix Swamp Kings the other night.
Mm-hmm.
And, that approach was pretty brutal. I don't know what people would think about it. Mickey Marotti's a friend of mine. He's at Ohio State now. He's a strength coach there, making about $900,000 a year. But he was the strength coach with Urban Meyer at that point. And, they had the guys come in and work out at midnight. That was their lifting time. So that's a little wake-up call. But all things considered, all the things that we did, we weren't far off from what they were doing, really. And and I believe in those things, of course. Check that out sometime if you get a chance, and tell me what you think.
I will. I'm gonna check it out.
It's interesting.
A good friend of mine, Brandon Siler, he played for Florida, and he's a real big advocate for Florida Gators, and he's been pushing out, talking about that. I guess that documentary, The Swamp Kings.
Yeah,
he's been pushing it. He's been talking about it a lot, telling me to watch. I haven't seen it yet, but I'm gonna check it out.
Well, Mickey at Ohio State, when I retired, he said, "Hey, would you like to do a Zoom call and talk about speed with my staff?" So I got on there and talked about speed. And he said, "Hey, now I want you to tell," because it was at Cincinnati. He said, that time we came down there with Rick Mentor and it was muddy and you had them 2 guys fighting in the locker room before the game. Tell my staff that story. So, I told him that story. I can't remember the guy's name right now. He sold insurance in Greenville, but I always had him come and teach hand quickness to our guys. And I remember he hit Jeff Carr in his elbow, and this guy he must not have weighed but about 170 pounds, but Jeff Carr thought he got his elbow broken. But yeah, he brought in 2 guys for me. They fought 3 rounds in the locker room before the game, and Coach Logan didn't know what we were going to do it. So when he walked in the locker room, he was quite surprised. But yeah, Mickey had me tell that story. We won the game, so that was good. If you would talk a little bit about your mentors in the NFL, some of the coaches you really thought a lot of and why. And of course, I'm familiar with the coaches. I visited probably half a dozen NFL teams over the years. I visited Mike Clark when he was at Texas A&M. He's one of the first persons I visited. And then Steve Watterson's still a good friend of mine, Al Miller. So tell me a little bit about the people that influenced you in the league.
So the ones that influenced me the most in the league was, even though I came in under Bill Parcells when I got to Dallas my first years, Bill Parcells was first of all, just meeting him, you got to make sure you don't get starstruck, because this is the big tuna. This is Bill Parcells, Hall of Fame coach. So when you meet him, you got to keep your composure and just understand that, okay, you're not a fan anymore. You're here. So
right.
Bill Parcells, he really did a great job in being hard but fair. And that's one thing about him. He's a tough coach, but he's a fair coach. If he see that you're good enough, he's going to play you. And I love that about him. But a coach on that staff that really mentored me a lot and throughout my entire career, and I kind of get into it, Todd Haley. Todd Haley was the receiver coach for Dallas when I was there. And he was one of the guys that would dog cuss me. When I say dog, because I'm talking about he'd call me every curse word in the book, you know. And one thing, he was a great receiver coach, but he was tough. Anybody that's been coached by Todd Haley understand that he can be an a-hole. He can be that. And but again, my first year coming to the league, my first 2 years in the league, I'm thinking this is what the NFL is like. This is how you get coached. So I just got to take it. And so that's the beauty of coming to a situation, and it's hard because that's all you know. And so that's all I knew. And like I say, he used to dog cuss me in practice every day. But what he was doing, he was building mental toughness, because if I can handle his type of coaching, wouldn't nothing break me when it comes to the game time. I wouldn't be on the field, and the situation would never be too big for me, because mentally, I'm so mentally tough. And the way he talked to me, the way he coached me, how hard he coached me, I never gave him lip back. It was always yes, sir, no, sir. I was the same person when I showed up every day. I didn't come in one day I got an attitude, another day I'm coming in happy. Every day you seen me, I was the same guy, regardless of how coach coached me or how hard he coached me. I was never that guy that was going to give him lip back. It was always yes, sir, no, sir. And one thing that did was, I was with Dallas my first 2 years. Todd Haley was my receiver coach. Once I left Dallas, I went to New Orleans. And when I went to New Orleans, Sean Payton was my head coach in New Orleans. Well, before I got to New Orleans, Sean Payton was the offensive coordinator for the Dallas Cowboys. And again, he understood the type of person I was. He understood I could take coaching. I was going to be a great guy in the locker room to help mentor other guys. So soon as I got released from Dallas, the next day he picked me up and I'm in New Orleans. And so now when I'm in New Orleans, we play the Eagles for summer. I'm in New Orleans for 3 years. We play the Eagles all 3 of those years. And remember, me coming from Dallas, the Eagles was in our division. So me playing for Dallas for 2 years, we played the Eagles twice a year. So I played the Eagles 4 years in Dallas and 3 years when I was in New Orleans. So that's 7 times I played the Eagles. So watch this. So once I left New Orleans, I get picked up by Baltimore. And you got to think about it. Coach Harbaugh used to be the special teams coach for the Eagles. He done seen me 7 different times in my career play against the Eagles. And I dominated the Eagles on special teams every year. So now when I leave New Orleans, Coach Harbaugh picked me up, bring me to Baltimore.
Yeah.
Watch how this go full circle. Once I leave Baltimore, I go to Kansas City. When I get to Kansas City, who's the head coach? Todd Haley. My receiver coach from Dallas, my first 2 years in the league, is now the head coach of Kansas City. So once I leave Baltimore, the next day he picked me up and bring me into Kansas City, and I finished my career out in Kansas City. All because of me being able to take hard coaching and not getting the attitude and going about and doing things the right way. And then to say my last 2 years in Kansas City, I'm team captain my last 2 years. But a lot of it came from the mentorship of Todd Haley, of how to go about my business and how to take tough coaching and how to understand adversity and still do the right things through adversity. So Todd Haley really mentored me, and he didn't even know it, but he was mentoring me the entire time.
Well, it always pays to have character, brother. Ain't no doubt about that.
Yeah.
So let's go ahead and talk a little bit about the Premier Sports Academy. What your vision was there when you started it, and what your vision is for the future. And I've been over there a few times. And it's just wonderful how you've provided something for young people, and how you've been influencing them, giving them a chance to learn how to compete. And I really recognize and appreciate your enthusiasm in what you're doing with these kids. It really shows. So congrats on that. And, tell us a little bit about the Premier Sports Academy.
Well, I appreciate it, Coach. So the Premier Sports Academy is a training program. So it's a training facility. We got a 28,000 square feet training facility. We have a turf area with a weight room. We have meeting rooms up top. We have a full industrial kitchen where we sell protein shakes and different food for the kids for recovery. We have a full gymnasium. And some of the programs we have a speed and agility strength training programs where kids can come in 3 to 4 times a week and get speed and agility work, strength training work. We also have after school programs, summer programs where we go pick kids up from school, help them with their homework afterwards. During the summertime, we have summer programs where parents can drop their kids off 7 o'clock in the morning and they don't have to pick them up till 5 o'clock in the afternoon. So those are part of the programs. We have AAU travel basketball programs. So we have teams that we travel trying to get kids looks from different colleges. And we start from 5th grade on up to 10th, 11th grade. We also have 7-on-7 programs, again, where we do this in the springtime, and we start from 8 years old always up to 18-year-olds. And we have basketball leagues, summer leagues that we have. So there's a lot. We have individual receiver training, individual O-line training, individual linebacker training, any position that you want to train for in the sport of basketball, not just basketball, but football. We have those coaches to help you in those specific positions that you play. And the same thing with the basketball program. We also have room for birthday parties. Anytime you want to rent the facility out, there's options to do that for family reunions. So it's a huge multi-complex. Of course, we focus on the training, but it's so many different other things that we provide as well.
Well, that's awesome. I mean, that's a lot.
It's a lot.
And I grew up in Western Pennsylvania, so you might want to maybe one of these days get a wrestling mat in there and roll it out. Maybe we get a wrestling program going up in there.
Right. That's a great idea.
But before we sign off tonight, I definitely want you to talk about your wife because she is very involved in the business and probably keeps you straight. Mm-hmm. But talk a little bit about Candy.
Man, so what can I say about Candy? It's so much I can say about her. We've been together put it this way. We've been together since we was juniors in high school. I'm 41 now. So you can kind of do the math on it. That's how long we've been together. We have 3 beautiful children together. Our oldest he'll be 23 this year. Our daughter, she will be 20 this year. No, she'll be 19 this year. Sorry, Naya, if you watched it. She'll be 19 this year. Our youngest, he's in the 10th grade. He is 15. So we definitely have most of our kids are almost adults. But when I tell you, when it comes to the Premier Sports Academy, I'm the face of it. I am the face of it. But when I tell you that she runs it, she runs it. All the behind the scene things, she's on it. She makes my job easy. All I have to do is train, and she does all the back end stuff, man. She a monster. She an animal when it comes to this business stuff. She also has a cleaning company called Purple Lavender, where her company cleans residential. It also cleans commercial as well. So if anybody looking for that, Purple Lavender is her cleaning company. When it comes to our family, she holds everything intact. Of course, we parent together, but when I tell you she cuts no slack for our children, there is no slack being cut when it comes to her. She gets on everybody about the things that she need to get on them about, and I'm more of the disciplinary. If it ain't happening, then I come in with the disciplinary stuff. But when I tell you, man, she is the backbone of our family. She makes sure everything is running the way it should run. She makes sure it runs efficiently, not just the business side of things, but our family, our household as well. So I'm glad you brought her up, for me to talk about her, because I can't say enough about her. She does a lot when it comes to the business side of things and our household. And I'm thankful for her. I thank God for her, because I don't know how I would be here and the businesses would be here if it wasn't for her.
Right.
I'm just the face of it.
That's awesome. Well, you are very fortunate. I heard something today that I thought was interesting about the family.
Mm-hmm.
I think a former athlete was on talking about this, and he said, in my house right now, he says, we turn the TV off, we turn all the phones off, and we sit down and we have dinner together, and we interact with each other. So nobody's sitting on a couch with a plate. So we're going to all sit at the table and interact. And I thought that was just awesome. If we could get back to that, in this country, it probably would make a difference.
Yep, definitely.
But I really commend you on what you're doing with the business and what you've been doing with raising your family, and just all the things that you're doing in life that are right, in my opinion. So I think you're a great model and example to young people around the community, and also a great example to athletes coming through East Carolina University. I think maybe they should bring you in there a little bit more to talk to those guys about what to expect if they think they're going to, and if they get there, how to stay there. So, but I do see that, was happy to see that, of course, Holton Ayler's made the practice squad. And I think there's 3 other guys that you're probably familiar with that. What are they? Practice squad, 53-man roster. Is there 4 guys?
I know Holton he's signed back to the practice squad. I know Keaton Mitchell, he plays running back for the Ravens. He actually made the 53-man roster.
Right.
I'm trying to think who else. I know those 2 for sure.
I think there's a tight end, maybe.
Is it Jones?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. Maybe that's it. Yeah, I'm not familiar, but but happy to see some guys made it.
Definitely. And one thing about Pirates, man, our work ethic is, and I don't know if it's something in the water here or it's just because we in the East, but usually when Pirates make it to the NFL, we stay for a long time.
Right.
And I'm not just talking about myself. You got Vontae Leach, played for 10, 11 years as well.
Yeah.
You got the V-Man. He played for about 13 years.
Right.
So it's guys that actually make it from East Carolina tend to stay for a long time.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's a really good thing, because that's gonna help in the future. Get some guys in the door.
Yep.
You got George Kuntz and Robert Jones.
Yep, Robert Jones. Yep, David Garrard. Yep.
Yeah, there's a whole list, no doubt. Well, hey, we hit on everything that I wanted to hit on today, and me and you've talked about me coming over there and coaching a little bit one of these days.
Definitely.
I'm looking forward to that.
Definitely.
my techniques are old school, and so I was very impressed with you watching you train guys. I had no idea that you were a strength and conditioning coach as well, but you do a great job.
I appreciate it, Coach. Thank you. Well, look, again, that's one thing that I do. Like I said, I've been coached by Mike Clark when I was in Kansas City for 4 or 5 years, and you know Mike Clark very well. I tell people all the time, okay, I worked with Mike Clark for about 4 years. I worked with you for a year. Been trained under you for a year, watching and you showing me how to work different things like when I was in college. I tell people all the time, I said, man, I have worked with 2 of the top 3 best strength coaches ever, and I can't say enough about what I've learned from y'all guys, because I tell people all this, it's a copycat league. All it is you're going to take the stuff that you learned from coaches. You're going to take a little bit. I'm going to take a little bit of Coach Connors and put it in my pocket. I'm going to take a little bit of Mike Clark, put it in my pocket. I'm going to take a little bit of what I just know personally, put it in my pocket. And guess what? I'm going to make how I train out of all that. I'm going to put it together. And this is going to be my style. I'm going to do it like this. Yeah. So it's all about just learning from the guys that you've been mentored by, that you've been trained by, and adding your flavor to it. And now you have a system of what you do. It's all about information and understanding and asking questions when you're getting trained by coaches, especially these great ones out here. You got to ask, okay, coach, okay, why are we doing this? Not asking just kind of being an a-hole, but just asking because sincerely you want to know, okay, what did this work on? When we're doing this, what does this work on? Ask questions, because if this is something that you're going to do when you get out, you want to have those question answers so then you know it, while you're training. So, and then on top of your education, that when it comes to you getting certified and different things like that. So, like I said, I just take a little bit of everybody that I've worked with that was some good stuff, and I add it to what I do, and that's my type of training.
Well, strength coaches are some of the best thieves in the world. I've stolen a lot of things from a lot of people. That's why I flew around the NFL for a while. But
right.
Well, I really enjoyed having you. We're going to sign off, and please tell your family I said hello.
I sure will.
And good luck with the Premier Sports Academy. I'll be out there sometime in the near future to check it out again. And so this is Jeff Connor signing off for Absolute Empowerment. And God bless. We'll see you next week. Thanks a lot.
You've been listening to Absolute Empowerment with Coach Jeff Connors on The Sports Objective. Join us every Monday night for a new edition of the show. Listen to the show pretty much everywhere podcasts are found. Be sure to follow us on social media at The Sports OBJ on Twitter and TikTok, at The Sports Objective on Instagram. Like and follow our Facebook page and subscribe to our YouTube channel. As always, we appreciate you listening to the show. And go Pirates!